Welcome to the Begin with Yes show with your host, Paul Boynton.
Hi, welcome to Begin with Yes. I'm Paul Boynton, and you are part of, at least for our series, a historic first, because this is the first time we have Skyped in a Begin with Yes friend from another part of the country, and I'm so excited for the conversation that we're about to have. You know, so many times I'm talking about how important little steps are and how we have a tendency to overwhelm ourselves with the magnitude of getting from where we are to where we want to go. And so instead of moving forward even slowly, we just sort of stay in that stuck position. And so I'm a big believer in taking small steps, but every once in a while in our life, especially if we've been taking those small steps, we find ourselves at a point and a place where we have to take a big step. And our guest today, Paloma Campana, is someone that has done that along with her partner in a way that when I first heard about it, I thought, wow, she's really courageous and gutsy and going for her dream, or the dream that she shares with her partner. So please welcome our guest today, Paloma Campana. Welcome.
Hello, Paul. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you for being here and for being so bold to be the first Skype guest that we've had. It's going to be an adventure, so we'll see what happens. And right now I can see you, and I think you can see me. Can you?
Yes, I can. Hello.
Awesome. So what do you think about the small steps versus the big steps? Well, let's back up a little bit. Tell people a little bit about your story, and then we'll start sort of exploring how it happened.
Sure. I've been a litigation attorney in the civil rights field for the last 25 years. But on the side, there's always been quite a passion for the arts, and particularly for antiques. And I think for any collector, at a certain point in collecting, you either have to start selling or stop collecting.
That is so true. You run out of wall space, right, for your paintings or whatever.
It's true. That was the first problem.
Or bookcase space for me,
art. Yeah. Yes. And so Kevin and I really evaluated. We had each been in our respective careers for 25 to 30 years.
Okay.
We each were approaching and then slightly over 50. And we simply decided, we don't believe in bucket lists. Let's do this big, bold move right now while we're still young, we're healthy. 50 is a great age. You know enough to get through things without too much trouble. But it is also a good reminder of what it's like to do things in your 20s, and you think to yourself, I'm sleeping on an air mattress. What am I doing this for at this age? So we made the huge step of leaving our home in upstate New York to move down to the southern Outer Banks of North Carolina and to launch on June 25th an antique store right here in beautiful Beaufort.
Is it unusual, or were you just lucky that you and your partner were both at the same place at the same time to be willing and interested and able to make this kind of a move?
That's a great question. Both of us came out of relationships that were not quite as supportive. Okay. We each came from both parents and families and then previous marriages where our partners were more traditional. Okay. A little bit more 9 to 5, a little bit more, good to earn a consistent paycheck, which is good. There is a great benefit to that discipline. But we met at a point in our lives where both of us had spent some time living independently, developing ourselves as persons. And I think we were both just ready to really have a breakthrough in our own lives.
All right. And when you made this, which seems to me like a huge step, like in terms of time, did that take you a year to set in motion, or 6 months, or how did that unfold?
I would say that it took more than a year.
Okay.
Right? At this age, what's great is you do understand the benefits of planning.
Yep.
So there was a certain amount of just the initial concept being floated where I said, what would you say about doing this? which is always a problem, right? When one of us is coming up with a new idea.
Can I interrupt you
But
for a second? Because I'm at
yeah,
a place
sure.
where we're sort of having those kinds of discussions, like, what do you think? And I'm finding myself a little bit nervous about putting the question out there in case my partner says, oh, that's a great idea, let's do it,
Yeah,
before I've gotten to the place where I'm sure that I want to do it. Does that make sense? It's sort of like,
absolutely.
yeah, it's sort of like, it's kind of a, I don't know, as you're putting ideas out there, you're sort of discovering for yourself what makes sense for you too.
Yes. And then you have to remember the universe is reflecting back the intentions that you're sending out.
All right.
So when we made our trip down here to Beaufort earlier this year to start looking at properties, listen to that word start.
Okay.
The very first building that we looked at was simply the one.
Really?
We walked through the door and the first floor was already art gallery ready. Beautiful hardwood floors, big open space, gorgeous southern lighting. The upstairs was offices that we could easily convert into about an 1,100 square foot apartment for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I simply sat down and said, this is it. And again, it's back to that age 50 thing,
Yeah.
right? I've bought and sold enough real estate. I've looked at enough real estate. I've been to a lot of estate sales. So I have a sense of what I'm really looking for in architectural design and detail. And with Kevin's background in construction and his having built several houses from ground up, he was able then to do that technical review of the property and really say, okay, this is something that's worth looking at, getting in the inspector, getting in the HVAC gentleman, getting in the roofing gentleman, let's really put the numbers together on the table. And so we did right then and there in the hotel room and made an offer the next
You
day.
did. So you were sort of moving pretty quickly in terms of being decisive.
Kevin and I both believe an awful lot in the guidance of the universe,
Okay.
and that when one is banging one's head against the wall, you probably should take some time to evaluate, why am I having so many obstacles in my path? Why isn't this working? Have I thought this through? Am I prepared? Is it good timing for me and my family and so forth? The converse of that is the ability to trust that when things work smoothly, it's okay for something to go right.
Okay. Yeah. More than okay. It's wonderful. What did you have to let go of when you left New York?
I think the New York snow.
Were you glad to let go of the snow?
Not to be trite, but it snowed into April this year.
Right.
So, I was ready for that.
What
But
about
I think-
your law practice? I mean,
Sure. I think once involved with civil rights, always involved with civil rights in some form or fashion. And so the question that Kevin and I have been asking ourselves even is, as we make this transition out of some of the cases that I have, which will still take another couple of years,
okay.
what are the other opportunities? And we have already had several very surprising experiences down here. So part of that is coming out now in my creative writing. I
Okay.
do poetry, I do short stories, I do essay, and participating even in a poetry group, doing some live readings, really talking about issues like poverty in the South, race relations in the South. And so that's a really wonderful, unexpected turn to simply continue many of the same principles that I've lived my entire career.
Were you surrounded by people who said, this is a good idea, go for it? When you made this decision? No.
No. I believe in giving honest answers, and the answer is definitely no. My parents, in particular, my father British, my mother raised during the Depression, very pragmatic, wonderful fiscal conservative values. But as I kept arguing to them, but this is why I'm in a position to actually make this change, right? You're not seeing the full bouquet of achievement that's happened here for me to be able to simply pivot at this point in my life into something different is because I'm applying those exact principles. They passed away within the last several years. I never did win that argument with them. I tried.
Some arguments we never win. It doesn't matter, right?
Don't.
And what about friends and coworkers and?
I think it's tricky at this age if you do actually take risks, because many other people at this age are just starting to have their children in college, or they've just paid off the mortgage on their house and they're happy, not to have new bills. So I think it depends an awful lot on somebody's immediate circumstances. So we have friends saying, we'll be down there in 5 years and 10 years and 15 years, and, we'll visit you in the meantime. But it was a big leap from the standpoint that we don't have family in North Carolina, and we didn't have friends in North Carolina before we arrived here.
Okay. Any fear during that, before the leap?
Well, there was fear on the 2-day drive down here with the trailer.
Okay.
Because we are doing the renovations on the upstairs living quarters, and we're renting a condo temporarily for a couple of months. The person buying the condo that we were renting was closing the day before we arrived to close on our building. So as a lawyer, I'm imagining all these problems with both closings and that we would be homeless, basically. Is what I'm thinking on this 2-day drive down is, there's a number of moving parts here, and anything can slip the wheel, and we really could be on a much bigger adventure than we're bargaining for. So, fortunately, those 2 closings went smoothly, but there have been a good number of bumps. Absolutely. I think my original communication to you was about how my computers just did not work.
Right.
I got down here, I plugged them in, they refused to communicate between the printer, the computer. I went out and bought another printer. None of it was talking to each other. And I did have an actual deadline to meet for the Supreme Court of the United States. So it was not a small deadline on an 8,000 word paper that needed to be produced. So, you're going to hit those obstacles on the big leaps, and you're going to have those moments where you say, my entire computer system was working perfectly before I left my house. Why did I leave my house?
Right. Do you think, has it turned out exactly how you thought it would when you were in New York planning this?
Better. I would definitely say better, with some great enthusiasm. Part of what we were really after was finally living at the ocean.
Okay.
That was a big thing for both Kevin and I. We had been living on the shores of Lake Ontario and very much enjoying that. But we were both very keen to be living at the ocean. And we are just also steps away, one little bit of water away from the Rachel Carson Wildlife Preserve, where the wild ponies roam free. Right now they're having baby colts that we can see, just each morning as we go for a walk. Dolphins playing in the harbor. Flowers blooming as early as February. Big plus if you're a gardener. And so the people here as well have simply been showing up at the door. We have signs in the windows with the grand opening date of June 22nd, and they're coming and knocking, and we're here to say hello. And of course, they're quite curious also. Can we see anything now? Is anything ready?
Yeah.
So it's been lovely.
Do you have friends back in New York that you think are toying with these kinds of life changes? And do you think you've been an inspiration to them in some, by example, perhaps?
I think that's always a tricky question, because there's so much about my life that has really been outside the box. I'm so outside the box, I really don't believe in it.
Yeah.
Some of my cases have been huge cases against the federal government, and I've done them as a solo practitioner with no staff. So there's a lot about me that's already, I think, very uncommon. And what that means when you're really living that authentic self-life is you do tend to have friends who are also very true, very strong, prone to deep philosophical conversations. And so I think really we all inspire each other. I'm just blessed with a wonderful circle of friends.
When you think of, and I know that the way we sort of met each other was through the Begin With Yes Facebook page, and when you see the sense of community that's there, and can you somehow speak to, and I'm not sure how often you visit the page and what the page means to you, but can you speak to sort of that sense of community that's there, and how there's this sense, at least I feel, that people are sort of tuned into each other and cheering each other on and wanting each other to be successful, even though there's almost 2 million people there now from all over the world, and we're all at different places, but there's something that happens there that I find very meaningful in my own life. Can you speak to that for a minute?
Yes. I mean, begin with yes is part of the day. Anytime that I'm on Facebook, which I would admit is probably at least once a day, it's such a positive message, Paul, that you bring through your original post and your photography, that it's that same concept I was just mentioning, that attraction of other people who themselves are positive, making positive steps in their own lives, looking for a little bit of encouragement, or when it's a day that you are strong, giving that encouragement. And sometimes your posts just have so many comments. They just go on and on and on and on. And I tend to read deep into the comment section, really only on the Begin With Yes page, because the dialogue that goes on there really restores some hope in today's world.
And for me, it's like, I think that sometimes people think because it's my page that I've figured things out and know what I'm doing. And just to clear that up, it's sort of like I'm sort of participating in the process, and the things that I write about are things that I'm sort of exploring and thinking about. And so it doesn't come from a place of authority. It comes from a place of participation. So I think that's important to sort of put out there as part of the personality of the page, at least.
Absolutely. And I think the manner in which you share is not even just, looking for the right word here, it's not even just an insight. It's really are you feeling this too? Are you experiencing this too? So I do think the page reflects that you are on a journey. And that sometimes, when things are going well or when it's feeling strong, there is that minute of, am I out here on a limo by myself because I've made a big mistake? Or is there somebody else out here with me? And can we all just hold hands for a minute and celebrate that, we've made it this far? So it's a very good tone that you bring in your work.
Thank you. It's sort of like, if anyone's wondering how Paul's doing today, you can just read the post and have a sense for that. Because like everybody else, I have my good days and bad days, and I just keep moving forward one step at a time too, with everybody else. Before we leave, I'm hoping, because you're such an important part of the community on Facebook, that you might, and it's putting you on the spot a little bit, but just say whatever comes into your heart at this point in time, what you would say to those 2 million people who are all there. I mean, they're all over the place in terms of pursuing their own dreams. But do you have a nugget of advice that sort of comes from your heart right at this very moment?
I do. Don't be afraid to spend time by yourself, with yourself. When you come to know who you are, everything does seem to have a way of falling into place, whether it's attracting good and loving and kind friends, or even fixing your garden and finding the birds and the squirrels and all the healthy bugs are showing up, to participate and make your plants grow. The modern world is so in your face all the time and very noisy, and right now very negative. So be sure to make some quiet time. Look at that Begin With Yes image, read one of Paul's posts, take a few minutes to meditate, try his new music and meditation, but spend more than 5 minutes by yourself and really say, what do I want out of this opportunity to live?
Awesome. Thank you so much. Give Kevin my best, and maybe we can all visit again and tour your antique store one of these days soon. Would you be open to that?
We'd love to have you, Paul. We hope that you'll come on down.
All right.
It's a real pleasure.
I mean, I would love to do that in person, but I'm thinking we could do it through Skype too. So on this show, maybe one of these days.
Sure.
So awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Paul, for all that you do.
Awesome. And thank you for being with us on Begin With Yes. Our first experiment with Skype seemed to work pretty well. And if you're sitting there thinking, I can do that, I want to talk to Paul, I hope that you will send me a note at paul@beginwithyes.com, and we can begin talking about having you be a guest. So for right now, pay attention to, find a little quiet time if you can, and pay attention to what your inner voice may be saying to you, and then begin thinking about what might be possible in your own life. So have a great day, and thanks for being with us on Begin With Yes.